Welcome to this adjourned meeting of the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee for this morning, September 17th. We've been joined by Council Members Cano, Quincy, and Fry, which is a quorum of this committee, and also been joined by Council Members Yang and Palansamo. I can never pronounce your name right publicly. Thank you for being here today, even if you didn't want to be here for this conversation. We welcome your joining us. We have two items on the agenda. Item number one, I'm going to refer to the regular meeting set for next week. Are there questions with regard to that? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item has been referred to the regular meeting happening next week, Tuesday. The item we need to take up this morning is the Met Council's housing policy plan. Mr. Schaefer is here to give us an update on the staff comments as well as council comments with regard to the housing plan. Mr. Schaefer, welcome.
Good morning. Thank you. And thank you for the special meeting this morning to cover this. I have a short presentation, but we can just answer questions too as we go forward. I know time is important. But just as a start, the Met Council's housing policy plan is one of the four policy plans they've been putting together. This actually starts, they're legally mandated to develop a comprehensive plan for the region, the 7-county region. And that process started with the Thrive 2040 document that we brought forward to the City Council back in April. And then they go through four policy plans. One's a transportation policy plan. The second is the housing policy plan. One is parks and open space plan. And a fourth is the sewer and water plan, or water resources management plan. The housing policy plan, the comments are due on the 26th of September, and we'll be submitting comments hopefully next week. And those comments will go into a plan, and that plan is looking to be revised and expected adoption by the Met Council in November. The transportation policy plan was before the TP&W committee and will be for the full City Council this week. The regional parks and policy plan, that is moving forward currently in staff review and will be coming through review of the City Council committees. And the next cycle or the cycle after that. And we're still waiting for the water resources management plan to be released. What staff is asking today is to ask the committee to direct staff to submit the cover letter and detailed comments to the Metropolitan Council. What you found in your RCA in your packet were a cover letter that we proposed to that we drafted for the Met Council, as well as a detailed staff comments. The process to develop those comments was actually a pretty broad swath of city staff, including Health and Public Works. Lauren Olson from IGR and Jean Ranieri were very helpful in that process as well. CPED Housing and Policy Development and CPED Long Range Planning are all the groups that were involved. One of the most outstanding things about this is this is the first housing plan the Met Council has done in 30 years. They're legally not mandated to do a housing plan like they are with the other system statements, but they do have other statutes that they are required to enforce in their housing. And then one of our key and chief comment in the response to the housing policy plan is congratulating them and encouraged that they came forward and developed a housing policy plan for the region. We think it's well needed and will serve us well. The plan sets up a large idea of what the future demand and supply of affordable housing will be, and it kind of starts to paint a bleak picture. By 2040, we'll be adding 110,000 households with incomes less than $60,000 or $60,000 of AMI, or 60% of AMI. One of the key elements they focus on, and something that we focused on through Thrive comments as well, was the idea that the current racial disparities, if those continue, that'll amplify some of the concerns and really impact central core cities. Affordable housing funding is waning. I know this committee knows that already. And again, we haven't been producing as much affordable housing as we had planned or that we had set as goals for the county or for the council.
Mr. Schaefer.
Yeah.
Councilmember Quincy has a question.
Please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. I didn't mean to interrupt the flow of the presentation, but of the 110,000 households, is that in the region or in the city of Minneapolis?
That's the region.
Thank you.
So this is all at regional levels. They haven't broken down forecasts at a city level except for population and employment. which are easier numbers than to break down the specifics of demographics. So we highlight about 8 major areas that I'm just going to focus or talk about in the presentation. There's a lot more information in the detailed comments, and I'm happy to answer questions and address those if you feel it's necessary. But one of the key elements, again, is resources for funding for housing. We're really supportive of the Metropolitan Council and what they're trying to do in leveraging their existing resources, stacking their programs, trying to make every program do more than just one thing. And they talk about that in the plan through their LCA, Livable Communities Act programs, as well as the regional solicitation, where they're trying to tie stronger affordable housing aspects to that. They're also looking at trying to find new tools, which we're also supportive of, which is a tool they talk about is the Inclusionary Housing Fund, which is a tool that I think that was funded by the state legislature several years ago for one year, or maybe it was 2 years, and trying to bring that back again as another funding source, recognizing that there is a lack of funding to build the affordable housing that we need. But one of our concerns is that the plan, while it identifies these issues, isn't really emphatic about the concerns, emphatic about the lack of resources. They also, the lack of where the need, not really laying out the needs as well as they probably could, and then as well as taking a larger leadership and doing more collaboration and retaining and growing programs. So I think there's more work that the Met Council could do at a regional level that the city would support to help find and work on expanding programs and preserving existing affordable housing or other funding programs. Part of the Met Council's approach through Thrive MSP 2040 is a kind of a data-driven approach, something that we support. That data-driven approach goes to use something that's a current tool that's called the Housing Performance Score. This Housing Performance Score is a tool that they use to in the LCA funding programs. They use to measure projects in areas. They're looking at expanding that program, those funding scores, and making them more robust, and then applying them to other programs like the regional solicitation. They're also looking at changing the methodology used for allocation of affordable housing. Again, we support the concepts that they bring forward, but they don't actually have the final formulas. So we have some concerns that that we'd like to be involved with the development of those final formulas and testing those out as we move forward, just to make sure that we feel that we aren't endorsing something blindly, just under concept only. The housing policies plan spend some time talking about the areas of concentrated poverty, a significant issue in Minneapolis and other central core cities. And we are supportive to the Metropolitan Council's use of trying to use transit investments as a way to monetize and increase mobility in areas of concentrated poverty. We think those investments are going to be prioritized in those areas, and also to help engage and create income diverse neighborhoods. But one of the things we realize is that the plan really only focuses on the transit investments and doesn't really talk about the investments that could happen through other Metropolitan Council systems, and specifically the regional park system that they fund. We feel that there's a strong aspect to equity and investments in that can also create a stronger market, help monetize the areas a little bit more, and catalyze more income diverse neighborhoods. So we feel that that needs to be more robust. I apologize if you're trying to read the presentation. This is small text, and this is a complex issue. It's the affordable housing sewer access credit. The council proposes a couple of different ways of, again, leveraging its resources, and one is using the fees that they charge for sewer access charges. And this is a very complex issue, and an issue that Lauren Olson from IGR has really done a great job, I think, working through with city departments on that, so thank you. We are supportive of their idea of trying to find additional funding streams, and we feel that there is the fee structure, especially around sewer access charges, is a very complex issue that the city of Minneapolis has had some concerns with Met Council for years. And so we're supportive of them trying to find additional funding, but we don't know that the ideas that they floated in their affordable housing sewer access charge credit is the most effective way of achieving outcomes and increasing affordable housing, or helping fill that gap on affordable housing projects. So we feel the current project or proposal lacks detail, but we're open to discussing the issue further. So basically saying we have some concerns, but we'd love to continue to have this conversation and look forward. We look at a credit program with a neutral impact on rates is probably okay, and that we are sensitive to any proposals that actually increase the burden onto other SAC rate payers. And naturally occurring affordable housing, one of the larger topics going on in the plan is also this idea of preserving and retaining naturally occurring affordable housing. And in general, this is we're supportive of this concept. However, we feel there's two areas where this intersects that we have concerns. And one is the areas of concentrated poverty, and other is transit-oriented development. And the plan regarding transit-oriented development, the plan calls out for retaining affordable housing in transit station areas or naturally occurring transit areas. But they really don't understand or illustrate why those projects might be naturally occurring affordable housing. Are they functionally obsolete? Are they in poor condition? Our concern is actually there's other policy within the plan and within Thrive MSP 2040 that we want to increase density around our transit centers, our transit stations. And some naturally occurring affordable housing might not be that dense, and if it's low density, low density, we could probably do a better job of protecting our investments by encouraging larger development there, more robust development. So there's some policy intersection that needs to be worked out. And again, with areas of concentrated poverty, there is a concern that these policies could be interpreted as preserving large swaths of affordable housing in areas that already have the whether we say are affordable and have maybe a depressed market from the entire region. And in doing so, that prevents some other issues about increasing more income diverse neighborhoods. So there's some impact that we want to see and have identified as needing to be addressed. Fair housing became an issue. It was included in the plan, and it has taken on some of its own issue. But our comments on the inclusion of fair housing in the plan is commending the Metropolitan Council for elevating the issue of fair housing and exploring the role it can play to end discrimination in housing. We support the Met Council in developing its own fair housing policy and facilitating a dialogue with important around this issue. We also want to participate in conversations with the Met Council on this, and we thank them for their leadership. We also support the need for determining effective strategies and roles and responsibilities, as well as identification and allocation of resources needed to support both monitoring and enforcement of the Fair Housing Act. We would also like further discussion with the Metropolitan Council about the role of fair housing efforts play in future project funding determinations. They bring up an element of having a fair housing policy and how that might impact future projects, and it's not very well vetted in the plan, and so we'd like to have more information on that. So with that was a quick presentation on the material. I'm happy to answer questions or.
Okay, we've been joined by Councilmember Reich, who is also on the committee, and I'm opening it up for questions for Mr. Schaefer with regard to any of the portions of the plan and comments as being submitted by the city. Are there any other comments or questions for Mr. Schaefer? Seeing none, Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to thank Mr. Schaefer and Ms. Olson as we had a lot of staff go through this in a very short term to produce these comments, and just wanted to commend you for that effort and getting this through the process to make our timelines. So with just a brief comment that I thought it's great to have a housing policy plan for the first time in over 30 years, and moving forward in many of the directions that the city is working at. I think it's an appropriate time to move for approval of this item as the cover letter and the comments to be submitted. So thank you. I'd like to make that motion.
The motion has been made to approve the staff recommendation and comments as submitted. Are there further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Seeing no further business before us, the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee is adjourned.